Thank you very much, Amanda, and thank you very much, Oracle OpenWorld, for having me here today. I think we've got a tremendous day in store, and I just wanted to thank Oracle for the tremendous agenda we've got in store, and also for the very generous and accurate welcome. And this has already gone so much better than a conference I did in Manchester last year, where I was welcomed to the stage as PwC's Director of Artificial Insemination. Now, we're doing some pretty diverse things at PwC, drones, VR, AI, but that's not a practice area we've launched yet, maybe next year. I think we've got Tim Peake today as well. I'm sure most of you are here for him rather than me, so rest assured today is looking up. But on the subject of looking up, I think we have got a tremendous opportunity with AI. We are seeing an opportunity to transform businesses across the world. In fact, we do a CEO survey at Davos every year. The one from last year suggested that 85% of chief executives believe that AI will substantially transform their business within the next 5 years. I think there is an issue here around the hype and the dystopia surrounding the technology. There's never a day gone by where some outlandish claims of the tech do come to the fore. But also, there's much more of a negative, I guess, fear-mongering side of the story as well. And really, I want to park both of these narratives and focus on the very real, positive power that AI will lead to in the years to come. And I think another headline-grabbing stat from a survey we did about a year or so ago was to look at the economic impact of AI across the economy as it drives productivity growth, as it drives consumption of goods and services. We believe that by 2030, AI could add an additional $15.7 trillion to the world economy, a substantial prize for us to aspire to achieve. And in fact, in the UK, we believe this adds an additional 10% to GDP by 2030, a £232 billion dividend to aspire to achieve. We're seeing countries across the world starting to join this AI journey. We've seen 35 countries publish AI strategies in the last 2 years. In fact, here in the UK, AI has been designated a grand challenge in the industrial strategy. So tremendous opportunities here. And I think also where it's happening is across all sectors. Clearly, financial services doing some remarkable things. We're seeing this in aviation, aerospace, automotive, and beyond. For me, one of the areas that particularly inspires me is around the healthcare sector. I think we're going to be hearing some more of that today. We're seeing breakthroughs in disease diagnosis. We're seeing extraordinary opportunities around precision medication and in the field of drug discovery. And one of the things that specifically drives my passion for this technology and this industry is that latter point. Very tragically, I lost my mother, big inspiration in my life, to motor neuron disease a number of years ago. And it's an horrific illness, if anyone's aware of this. No cure for this illness, but rare enough that there's no incentive in the pharmaceutical industry to invest substantial funds into looking at specific drugs to treat this. And I can already say there's a tremendous British AI company, Benevolent AI, that are already starting to see amazing benefits applying machine learning to that clinical trials process, and have already identified potential candidates to treat this disease. So remarkable opportunities across the healthcare field as well. I think another field where there's remarkable promise as well is in the grandest challenges facing society in the years to come, and that's in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, whether it's tackling climate change through the optimization of energy or transport systems or land use planning, being applied to satellite, sensor and drone data to monitor air pollution, extreme weather and illegal deforestation, or whether it's ameliorating the effects of world hunger through intelligent agriculture. Extraordinary opportunities for us to take advantage of. Whether it's education, providing personalized learning for all. If this opportunity is within our grasp, I'm sure we'd all agree that we have to do everything in our power to take this opportunity, because we only have 10 years to make good on these goals. I think as we gaze up to the stars, to borrow a Tim Peake cliche, and dream of achieving what we can have thought of as unimaginable only a few years ago, I think we do need to occasionally just pause and reflect and look back down upon the route we've taken and make the necessary course corrections. I think the trajectory of this AI revolution has not been without a number of significant in-flight risks. And I wanted just to highlight some of these, and I'd probably divide it into 5 pillars of what we would call responsible AI. First of all, there's clear concerns about the ethical considerations of this technology. There are evidence of issues coming through with regards to bias and fairness of AI. We know also in regulated industries there's issues around the explainability and interpretability of algorithms, and increasing concerns in a security and privacy and the robustness of these tools. And underpinning this, the need for new governance to ensure that this is being harnessed in a responsible way. I think from an ethical standpoint, one of the ones that's raging at the moment is around the application of, say, facial recognition and the trade-offs claimed in crime prevention and security versus potential infringements on privacy and frequently demonstrated risk of discrimination. I think there's a degree of promise around the ability to leverage diverse and multidisciplinary teams to ensure there's the right challenge there, to ask the question, just because we can do this, should we? For example, we've embedded ethicists into our AI team to provide that ability to ask the hard questions of our technologists. I think another area, and sorry for having to have my mug on the screen twice here, is around this AI bias and fairness debate. I think there's been a proliferation of harmful outcomes of bias and fairness in AI, whether it's gender and racial bias in hiring algorithms, lending and credit approval, criminal justice, predictive policing, healthcare provision. Across the board, there have been stories surfacing on a weekly basis that do give us that pause for thought. But what is fairness? I mean, for example, we did a paper last year that looked at fairness, the very concept of fairness, and we came up with 20 different mathematical definitions of what fairness is. So you can't be fair to everybody. You need to be able to focus upon who you're being fair to and why. And I think it certainly helps as well if you can say that your underlying data is sufficiently debiased. And I think this example here I just wanted to point to is around something called ImageNet, which is a data set of 14 million images. The academic Kate Crawford said it's probably one of the largest and most controversial AI data sets in the world. And what they decided to do was look at this, this set of images. And this had been labeled by human workers over the course of years, a whole set of people's faces, and build a game layer that sits across this ImageNet. And they called it ImageNet Roulette. And what you do is you upload your photo to this game. And this here is what this labeled me as: a baron. What else was it? Noble, blue blood, aristocratic, and a lord. I don't mind that. However, when I put one of my female colleagues through this same game, it labeled her a spinster and a shrew. And this is extremely pervasive, this system, and we've had to then take millions of images off this. So issues there from an AI bias and fairness perspective. I think also there is concern about the explainability of these algorithms. In fact, the CEO survey I referred to earlier suggests that 84% of CEOs say that AI-based decisions need to be explainable in order to be trusted. And I think there's a great degree of difference between having a movie recommended on a Netflix, for example, versus having a treatment regimen for cancer determined. You need to know how those decisions are made about you using these tools. I think also from a security and privacy point of view, we've seen a rapid growth in AI harnessed to exploit cybersecurity weaknesses and fuel adversarial attacks. I think this came to head in a story about 6 months ago, if anybody saw this, where some fraudsters had taken a whole set of video and audio clips from a group CEO at conferences like this and managed to synthesize using deep learning his voice to get him to call a fellow executive and request a wire transfer for several $100,000, and this successfully went through. So already this is being harnessed for nefarious means. And I think underpinning all of this is the development of appropriate governance for AI. It's rising up the board agenda. I probably spend as much time with board chairs, non-executives, regulators, ministers, and other stakeholders as much as I do with the C-suite. And I can tell you it's extraordinary, the level of appetite and for insight around this topic. I think it's grown by the month, and I think it's only a matter of time before the shareholder community as well engage in this and demand that companies up the ante around the governance of emerging tech. So how do you set your team up for success in a way that mitigates risk and avoids those unintended consequences? How do you ensure that you have the right set of diverse voices in the room, ensuring you're asking the hard questions? And how do you adapt your existing governance, risk, and compliance frameworks to ensure that they're able to cope with the particular issues that AI will bring to bear? I think these are urgent questions that need answering, and they need comprehensive solutions. So organizations really need to strive to develop, implement, and use AI solutions that are both morally responsible and also legal and ethically defensible. So really, a responsible AI approach is what we talk about. But I think there's a whole number of interesting, crucial steps we have to go through to ensure that the technology and data strategy is in the right place. It's been an honor to present alongside a number of our customers in partnership with Oracle over the last 2 days. Companies such as Clydesdale Bank and Mace and Direct Line Group and Corian and bpost, to name but 5. And to see how they've adopted Oracle Cloud ERP with embedded AI, already starting to yield the initial benefits of AI. And this potentially then can allow them to follow in the footsteps of a leading US restaurant chain that we're supporting now, revolutionizing their P2P process with Oracle Adaptive Intelligence. So tremendous opportunities now to harness this technology with Oracle technology. But I think as Safra was saying yesterday, the line that struck me was the hardest part of this AI transformation journey is not the technology itself, but it's totally rethinking your entire business model. This is not just an accretive, iterative technology. I think this fundamentally transforms the way you need to think about how you harness this technology for the future. But at the heart of this, I think we've spoken a lot about technology today and will continue to for the course of the day. But for me, the fundamental ingredient I wanted to spend the second half of my talk focusing in on is that crucial ingredient, and that's the people that sit at the heart of this technology revolution. There's been an explosion of reports in the last 4 or 5 years trying to understand what the effects of technological disruption and automation will be on jobs and on the workforce. For example, our survey from 2 years ago looked at the susceptibility of jobs across the world to being automated by tech. We think that up to 30% of existing jobs could fall into that category by the mid-2030s. And no wonder that people are worried. 53% of workers believe that AI and automation could significantly change their job or make it obsolete in the next 10 years, and that's a very, very rapid time frame. On the other side, though, when given the choice to upskill, to future-proof themselves, to be prepared for the future, over 3/4 of workers say that they would grasp the opportunity. But to counterbalance that, only 26% of them were saying that their organizations are currently adopting this at the moment and giving them that chance to embed upskilling to their curriculum. One thing that I've been pleased to see that we've done at PwC, is a comment from our global chairman, is to look at across the entirety of our workforce globally, 276,000 people, and say, opt into this. We can't guarantee what you'll be doing in the years to come, but if you do this, you'll be doing something with us. And I can tell you that that's created this groundswell of bottom-up employee advocacy. People realize there's a future there. And this is a $3 billion global investment to put our money where our mouth is. So I think to stay ahead of this technological revolution, to harness the opportunity this technology will bring to bear, is a need to focus on our ability to continuously adapt, no longer just acquiring knowledge, but learning how to learn. And remembering that we can't be complacent, we have to think about this as a lifelong endeavor. It certainly changed my approach to education, thinking it was out of the way. I now think about this every day. But I also think about the workforce we need to bring with us. We've got a lot of non-digital natives in our company, as many of our customers do with Oracle. I think a lot about the quote by Douglas Adams of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fame, who had 3 rules for technology. And he said, rule number 1, any technology in your life when you're born is entirely natural. Rule number 2, any technology invented between then and the age of 35 is incredibly exciting and creative, and with any luck, you can base your entire career out of it. But any technology invented after the age of 35 is the threat to civilization as we know it, until it's been around for 10 years, when it works out okay after all. And trying to encourage non-digital natives in to grasp the opportunity, to realize how accessible this tech is now, has been really exciting to make it real, to give people hands-on opportunities to do this. So to conclude, I also think about this in terms of what we know now, but where we are going next in terms of the next generation. I'm a father of 3 youngsters. Got a 10-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old son, and a 4-year-old daughter as well, and a new puppy, hence the scratches all over my hands. But I got back from one of these conferences about 2 years ago, and my mind ablaze with thoughts about the future of technology, of AI, the impact on the workforce of the future. And I got home and I was chatting to my son, he was 6 at the time, Dylan. I said, Dylan, I've just been to this conference, we're talking about what robots are going to do to the world, and I said, what do you think you're going to be when you grow up? And they said, Daddy, I've thought it through, I'm going to be a train driver. And without thinking this through at all, I just blurted out, well, according to this conference, the robots do that in 20 years' time, you won't have a job in that field. to which he cried and stormed off to his bedroom. It wasn't a successful start to this upskilling program at home. So once the following day, he was, I think, speaking to me again. I thought, we need to continue on this journey. And I thought, well, clearly, where do you go to prepare your offspring for this uncertain future? Clearly, school have all this worked out. So I sent him off to school the next day with a scrap of paper that said, technology, get a book out from the school library on technology. And he came back, full of beans later that day. We sat there doing bedtime reading, and we pulled this book out of his bag. And the first chapter was how to send a fax. Apparently, the boy's letters made into a signal by this fax machine. Now, ladies and gents, I don't know very much about this topic at all, but I can tell you we're not forecasting this explosion in fax machine engineers anytime soon. So, okay, so I've failed my parental duties for preparing my offspring for the future. School clearly don't appear to have grasped the opportunity to ensure that they're doing the right things by the next generation. Where do you go? I mean, I'm very fortunate, I'm privileged, I get to see cool stuff every day in my life. And I sought some inspiration from something I saw from MIT. I'm sure many of you have seen The Moral Machine. If you've not, have a go at this game. These academics decided to build a game to crowdsource the ethics of driverless cars. And you can play this game now. So I thought, my kids are always stealing my iPad. Give them this game to play. So my kids have a crack at this. Let me have a look at a scenario. It gives you 12 different scenarios of what a self-driving car should do. And in this scenario, you can see that a car is going towards its certain death and its occupants, which I believe are 4 middle-aged women, I think, and a child. But crossing the road illegally, I hasten to add, ladies and gents, are 4 elderly people and a middle-aged woman. And you've got to decide if the car stays on course and sacrifices itself or swerves and takes out the pedestrians. Now, would anyone say that my kids decided to allow the car to stay on course? Or do you think the kids wanted the car to swerve? The car swerved and took out the oldies, I'm afraid. Now, judging by this audience, I think if you're anything like me, slightly geeky, you'll love what comes next in terms of dashboard analytics of your propensity to preserve certain life over others. And this is my kids' data. So you can see here, they've got a very strong preference for preserving the life of dogs over humans. I think that's very wise. Very strong preference for young people overall. Grandma gets killed the most. But in my defense, you can see here that they uphold the law more than the median. So maybe my parenting skills have some hope after all. Listen, it's a gimmick. It's ethically flawed. It's been slightly debunked by certain academics globally. But at least getting kids into this conversation of thinking the implications of tech are going to be so profound and so pervasive. Why are we not engaging them in this conversation today to upskill them, to have that ability to scrutinize the tech in the years to come? I think it's a vital thing to do. So with that in mind, I saw a couple of years ago what happens when something gets trendy. The politicians jump on the bandwagon. I joined these various committees, as Amanda said. One of the opportunities we had was to go into Parliament and present on AI to politicians. So we did a perfectly normal, but albeit boring, PwC briefing deck. And I thought I'd engage the kids, see what they said. And the next day, my daughter, who was 8 at the time, came up with this bit of paper and said, "Daddy, we've got it all worked out. We've written some robot rules." And this is what they came up with. By the way, I tweeted this. It went viral around the world. It was picked up in like 18 different countries. Someone very kindly referred to it as an upgrade to Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, which was very kind. Then an internet troll decided to do a critique on it and pick a load of holes. I said, "My dear friend, my kids were 8 and 6 when they wrote this. Don't let your kids go on social media." But at the heart of this one I really like is this rule number 1. Bad people should not build robots. And I think this cuts through everything we're talking about yesterday and today. For too long, this debate about technology is about this unrelenting force that marches through business and society and our jobs and our workforce and our communities, this unrelenting power that disrupts our lives beyond our control. But it seems to me it's evident it's not about the machines wielding the power over the people. I think this is about developing a workforce that's representative of all parts of society and allows you to build technology that affects everybody positively as much as possible. Technology with our interests at its heart, as well as our planet's interests at heart. and people incentivized to solve the most important problems in a way that builds trust in society. One of those big issues is the lack of gender representation in the workforce. One thing I've been proud to be part of with my PwC colleagues is our Tech She Can agenda, and I'm pleased that Oracle, Amanda, are very key signatories to that. So please sign up to this. We've got 143 signatories to this now, and it's going to be a tremendous opportunity to build role models for young girls to enter the profession. So with that in mind, I think we need to listen less to the doom-mongers. I think we need to downplay the hype somewhat. I think there's some historical wisdom with the likes of Douglas Adams there as well. But most of all, let's listen to the people who are going to inherit the decisions we make today. People like Dylan, Neve, and Elodie McCargow here, my kids. So most of all, I think we need to think about, the people that power this machine. Thanks for listening. Have a great day ahead.